Hello, welcome back to the channel. In this example, we're going to automate one of the most important functions in the corporate world, and that's the VLOOKUP function. And we're going to use VLOOKUP in another sheet. So once again, I have the IMDb top 1000 dataset from Kaggle, and we have exactly 1000 movies here. And we also have another sheet where we're going to write the VLOOKUP. Of course, there are discrepancies in the number of movies, so not all movies in this sheet exist here, which will cause some errors, and we're going to have to handle this. So Alt F11 to launch the Visual Basic Editor. I'm going to insert a module and start writing a subroutine, which I will call maybe simply VBA VLOOKUP, because I cannot think of a better name for now. And I would like to quickly write a structure for next loop in this sheet, because we're going to be looping here in order to write the VLOOKUP. So first I'm going to declare this this worksheet as a variable, and I will call it LKP, short for lookup WS, as worksheet. And then I'll set it here to be equal to this workbook.worksheets lookup. Then I would want to get this range dynamically. That means that I'll need to declare a last row here as long, and the last row will be equal to the lookup worksheet dot cells dot rows dot count on the first column, column A, and Excel up dot row. If you're just starting with VBA, then practically what I did here was to go to the very last row, the very last cell in column A, and practically click Control up and get this row here. So if I run this here, it should return 75, and that's correct. And now we need another variable, which I will use in the loop. I will call it I. And here we can write for next loop. So for I equals 2 to last row, next I. And if I want to test this, I can print the names, the movie names in the immediate window. So here I can write debug.print, and let's say row, and concatenate this with the I variable, and then concatenate this with the name of the movies, which are on row I and column 1. So if I write this, and maybe I will write dash here, so it's more understandable in the immediate window. If I click run, for instance, we can see that row 22nd will be in inception, and that seems to be correct. So I'm going to remove this now, and now let's write the VLOOKUP part. And I can write it here in the same subroutine, but the code will become very messy. And I prefer this to do this in another function. So I'm going to write a function which will return a reference to the lookup range. So here I will write function which I will call get lookup RNG. And maybe in more sophisticated examples, we can pass arguments here to get the relevant worksheet if we had like 10 or 20 worksheets. But in this case, it's not needed. So this function will not accept any parameters, but it is going to return range as data type. And I would want to dynamically return that range, so it shouldn't be hard-coded nor for the number of rows nor for the number of columns. So we'll have to get this dynamically. That means that first I'm going to declare this worksheet, the source sheet, as variable, which I will call data ws as worksheet. And this will be this workbook.worksheets IMDb top 1000. And I will also need two variables, last row as long and last call as integer. And let's find them here. The last row will be, once again, we're going to start from the very last cell in column A and use the end property and click Control up and get the row. And for the last call, it's going to be very similar, but it's going to be on row 1 and columns.count. And this time we're going to use Excel to left and get the column. And now we need to assign a value for that function. And this is a mistake that I often used to make back in when I was self-studying VBA back in the days. But since we're going to return a data type range, instead of simply writing get lookup equals to something, we need to use the set keyword here because it's an object. So set this, and this is going to be equal to the range of cells in that same worksheet, where the first cell in that range will be on row 2 and column 1, and the last cell of that range will be on row last row and column last call. That's it. So back to our VBA VLOOKUP subroutine. We can write here, we can declare another variable, which I will call LKP range as range. And here I can write set LKP range equals to whatever this function returns. And just to check that this is correct, I can here write LKP range dot select. And since I have activated this worksheet, if I now click run, and we can see that it has selected everything from cell A2 to the end of my data. And if I add more data here and run this, I think it will work properly. I'm going to delete this gibberish now. And it's time to write the VLOOKUP here. And maybe what we're going to try to get as data will be the director of those movies. So the director is in column F, which is the 6th column. So here I can simply write that in this sheet that I have named here with this variable name, on row I and column 2, which is column B, that value, this will be equal to, and I want to move this to the next row, so space and underscore, application, and I will directly write VLOOKUP here. And the first argument will be what we have here, So once again, okay, PWS cells on row I and column A, which one? The second argument will be this range. The third argument will be which column are we interested in. And we saw that the director is in the 6th column. And lastly, the match type. And I'm going to use 0, which is exact match. So if I now click run, yeah, I should get rid of this select statement here and try this again. So if I now click run, we can see that this works. And if I test it also manually, so if I write the VLOOKUP function manually, I'm sure I'll get exactly the same result. So if I write VLOOKUP A2, and let's log the range here and get the 6th column with exact match. And we can see that we're getting exactly the same result. The thing about using VBA though, however, is that we can customize the return. So for instance, here, maybe instead of seeing this NA, I may want to write not found, or maybe I want to color the cell in red. Because in real world example, maybe a missing value may be critical if we are going to load this data in another system. So that's what we're going to do now. And I'm going to declare a variable here, which I will call v as variant. And I will assign v to be equal to this part here. And now I can write an if statement here. So if not is error v, then we can write that the cells on column I and on row I and column 2 value equals v. Else, meaning if there is an error and the value is missing, we're gonna write, maybe we're gonna write not found instead of this NA. And we can also change the color, interior.color equals RGB red, and maybe also change the font color to white. And if I now run the process again, we will see that we have now colored the cells where the movies are missing in this case. And what we can also do is maybe show a message to the user exactly how many items are missing in this case movies. So let's do this quickly. I'm going to declare a variable here c as counter, so as long. And anytime we enter this else statement, we're going to increment c. And after the loop, we can write message box saying something that c movies have not been found. Maybe VB information. So let's try it again. Row. And it says that 19 movies have not been found. So this is an easy example of using VLOOKUP in VBA in another sheet. If you have any questions, please write those in the comments and I'll make sure to reply back as soon as I can. And thanks for watching, and I see you next time.